A Central New York congressional candidate is getting creative in his pursuit of votes in the 24th District. John Katko is hosting John Katko for Congress night this weekend at a Syracuse Chiefs baseball game. I don't believe it's a fundraiser, but the Republican did support a pretty successful fundraising quarter earlier this week. He is running against a Democratic incumbent Congressman Dan Maffei. Joining me now from Syracuse to talk more about his campaign is John Katko. Welcome. It is good to meet you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, Liz. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. So this isn't a fundraiser, what you're doing this weekend, correct?
Yeah, it's not a fundraiser. We just wanted to think outside the box a little bit and try and give back to the community a little bit during the course of the campaign. And the Chiefs is under new management this year, and we looked at the 4th of July weekend. We thought about baseball, we thought about fireworks, and naturally we thought about the Chiefs. And we decided to give it a whirl and see how it goes. We're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it seems to be, I mean, it's interesting, certainly. You're going to have people wear T-shirts that bear your name, so you're raising your name recognition. It just seems expensive. Can you tell us how much it's going to be?
Oh, it's not going to be very expensive at all. I think it's going to be a few $1,000s for the event. And it's going to give us an opportunity to get our name out there. And believe me, people going to the game are going to see our name everywhere. And we're going to have a lot of people wearing the T-shirts, and we're going to have a lot of information about our campaign. And things like this are helping us to promote our name and get our name out there. And so I think overall it's a very good investment. And more importantly, we're giving back to the community at the same time. So it's a win-win. You
did have a good fundraising quarter, as I mentioned, so you've cash on hand. You've got about $200,000 cash on hand, is my understanding. You raised just shy of $170,000, and that's a lot for an insurgent candidate, but it's not a lot compared to Mr. Maffei. I mean, he's got well over $1 million on hand. So doesn't that make this a little bit of a lopsided effort for you?
Well, I have to correct your math politely there.
Please.
The numbers you talked about were on June 4th. That was part of the preliminary report for the quarter. As of today, or as of June 30th, we had $360,000 in the bank, and we had double the amount of money we've raised since June 4th. So it's amazing how much this campaign is picking up speed quickly. And since we started, don't forget, I just started on March 1st. And since March 1st, we've raised over $400,000, almost all of it locally, 96 or 98% of it. And it's just a very grassroots, organic happening here. And I think it's emblematic to think of the fact that people really want change. So the amount of money we're raising is going real well. And we've closed the gap dramatically with Mr. Maffei already, and I think that as time goes on, we're going to continue to do so. Not sure we're ever going to match his fundraising prowess. He is an incumbent, but I'm also positive you don't have to win.
You know, this is a fascinating district. It has changed hands several times over the course of the past several campaign cycles. And one of the problems for your predecessor, the last Republican who held the seat, Anne Marie Buerkle, was that it was redrawn. The district was redrawn, which made things challenging for her. Are you concerned about that? I mean, it was a court redistricting plan. It wasn't the legislature, so it came out a little bit differently than it might have.
Well, I'm not concerned about that at all. The 4 counties that comprise our district are 4 counties I'm well aware of. I've lived here my whole life. I've hunted, I've fished, I've camped, I've traveled all over this district throughout my whole life. So it's not as if I don't know the area like the back of my hand. And I have a gigantic family, and I have family in all 4 counties. We have them everywhere around here. So I know the area. I know what the differences are in the parts of the area. And one of the key parts of the area is the city of Syracuse.
Right.
And there in the city of Syracuse is where I think I can make some substantial inroads, since I've been a federal prosecutor for so long. And as a federal prosecutor, I spent a vast majority of my time combating the gang problem, the gang epidemic, if you will, in the city of Syracuse. So I know the city of Syracuse extremely well, and I know the good people there very well.
Do you expect to get a lot of attention from the National Republican Party and support? Because 2 years ago, there was a record $10 million spent on this race. I know the Republicans at one point were very interested in getting this seat back, but I'm not sure where that stands with them now.
Oh, I think they're very interested in getting this seat back, and I think they realize that they have an opportunity to do so here. And so we're real excited about that. I don't know about how much money is going to come in or who's going to come in and what third-party type advertising is going to come in. I can only concentrate on what I'm doing, and we're getting our message out. And I think by the fundraising alone, it's showing that the message is resonating with a lot of people.
I want to talk a little bit about issues. One of them that's happening in D.C. right now, in fact, is immigration reform, or rather it's not happening because Speaker Boehner informed the president that he in fact would not allow a vote on the House floor for immigration reform that the president has been pushing, so the president's going to go his own way with executive orders to the degree that he can. Do you believe that Boehner should have allowed this vote? This is a very important piece for the Republican Party if it wants to expand its big tent operation.
Yeah, see, I think I'm not sure vote is the right term to use. I think there should be discussion. And you know, the problem with Washington, and one of the reasons I gave up a very good career and very stable career with 3 teenage boys, is because I couldn't sit on the sidelines any longer and watch the gridlock in Washington. There's failed leadership on both sides of the aisle. And whether or not you consider Mr. Boehner's failed leadership or not, you can't consider what he's doing or not doing in a vacuum. You have to look at the entire matrix of Washington. You've got a president who's a very polarizing figure who is enabled and incapable to work with the other side. You have people on the Republican side that have their back up as well, and it's not productive. I think we've had times in our past where people have gotten along and people have worked despite very big differences. I look at 2 titans of their parties back in the 80s, Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, and back more recently, Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich. You know, that can happen, and I want to be part of the wave that goes to Washington and reinstill some common sense and some civility to the process, because without that, nothing's going to get done.
So it sounds to me like you would take a little bit of a more pragmatic approach, which is also a departure from, again, the Republican who used to hold that seat, Anne Marie Buerkle. I mean, it's the Tea Party and the conservatives that drive the agenda frequently inside the House GOP conference, and that's a problem if you consider yourself a moderate, do you?
I don't know if I consider myself a moderate. I don't know about labels. I know one thing. I'm terribly concerned about the direction of our country is going financially. When we have $18 trillion in debt, that is a huge problem. And when you continue to add to that debt with deficit spending year in and year out, the only thing we're ensuring is that the future that we leave for our children is not going to be as good as ours has been. So I don't know about labels. I just know that we have to go down there and have to start the dialogue on both sides of the aisle. And I think when you really talk to anybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, they will agree the debt's too high. Well, let's do something about it. I think they'll also agree that some of the big hard items like entitlement spending and entitlements overall,
right,
they need to be fixed. They have to be there for our children and our children's children. And we got to get past the rhetoric and fix it so we can have it for them. And you can't fix it on the back of people that are at or near retirement age, but you got to figure out a way to fix it. And there's a lot of smart people in Washington. And I think we just got to put down the party labels and sit down and talk to each other.
Would you support John Boehner's continued leadership?
Well, I don't know until I get there, and I hope I have the chance when I get there to make that decision. But right now, it's still up in the air. You
mentioned the debt issue down in Washington. Of course, that's something we've talked about a lot over the past several years. Would you have voted to raise the debt ceiling, which of course means this country is able to borrow more, or raise taxes if it meant preventing the U.S. from going over that fiscal cliff?
Look, we can't. I don't know what all the details of the fiscal cliff, but I can tell you this much: the debt is a serious issue, and whether or not I'd raise the debt ceiling is something I'd have to determine once I get there. But one thing we have to all admit, it is an issue moving forward. We have to get away from these doomsday deadlines and sit down and really try and fix these things. And just to give you an idea, Ronald Reagan back in 1980 was trying to give an example of what $1 trillion looked like. $1 trillion, if you take $1,000 bills and stack them 4 inches high, that is $1 million. To get to $1 trillion, you have to have a 13.6 mile stack of $1,000 bills. Now multiply that times 18, and that's where we're at now. That's the real issue, and that's what we need to do on both sides of the aisle. We need to avoid these doomsday, cataclysmic events and start really working towards fixing things systemically long term.
We're almost out of time, but before I let you go, I do want to ask you, what is the main reason that you believe you'd be more effective in Congress for Central New York than Dan Maffei? I mean, is it because you would ostensibly be a member of the majority, despite the fact that the majority is a little bit fractionalized, if you will?
Well, I think the biggest difference is that I'm more concerned about my constituents' jobs and their well-being than my own. And I'm not sure Dan Maffei thinks that way. I'm very concerned about the future that we're leaving for our kids, and I want to make sure that the unemployment rates that are continually high here, the drain of jobs that continue to happen here, to turn that around. And I live here and work here, and I visit D.C. I think it's the opposite from Mr. Maffei, and I think that having a hometown grassroots guy here who truly understands the issues of the people, what people are going through here, that's what's going to be important for our district, and that's why I think I could do a better job.
I do want to press you on just one thing, though. I mean, if you look at his voting record since he's gotten back into Congress, it's a lot less go along, get along with the leadership than it had been the first time around.
There's no question about that. There's no question. I'm sure he's learned a few things since his first time around. But keep in mind one other fact in addition to what I've already stated, and that is that the Democrats are not going to win the House. And being a minority member of the House is basically hard to get anything done. And I'm going to be in the majority of the House, and I think the House majority on the Republican side is going to be strengthened in this election. So having someone in the majority is going to be another plus for the district as well.
Well, we're following this one, of course, a lot of people are, and I thank you very much, John Katko, for your time. We'll speak with you again.
I'll be on any time, and thank you very much for your time.